Hey y'all.
Hey, hey, love. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am great. I'm great. So
Hey.
happy to be here this Monday. Another day, another show.
Yes, yes. And this is going to be a
Yes.
good one. I'm so excited Kira is here.
Yes, I'm so excited. So today we have the lovely Kira here, athlete, traveler, entrepreneur. So I'm super excited to have her here today. It's going to be a
I'm
good time.
excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming.
Kira, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I won't steal the thunder from our conversation, but I am a Brooklyn born, now Chicago based, as you said, athlete, distance runner, entrepreneur, and lover of travel and wellness. And I know we'll get into all the things later, but that's a little bit about me.
Okay.
Yes.
So I spent a semi-substantial amount of time looking at your social media. I know that you love traveling. When did you first fall in love with traveling? And where are you going next? Because I already know there has to be some.
So I'll answer the where I'm going next because I think that that's probably a shorter answer first. I'm headed to Guatemala in, I guess, like about a week and a half now. And so prior to us being live, I was just buying my COVID tests online. You can actually get them. So you can take them with like a person online, and it's a lot easier than trying to find a test now within 24 hours. So I got that done. I'm also headed to the Maldives in January and then some domestic stuff too, which will be really exciting.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm pumped. I first fell in love with travel, I think, when I was growing up. I didn't quite appreciate it, but I look back on it now and I'm really grateful for it. We went on a couple of trips when I was younger. And I remember my stepmom always being so great at finding incredible deals and like just making the most out of our time. I feel like even when we weren't traveling somewhere that was, outside of New York, we would go to like Manhattan from Brooklyn. We would, do activities, see different things. And I think I really got value from the experiences. And so as I got older, there was a period in high school where we really didn't travel as much. It's really expensive to travel with two like, fairly large size kids. And it's a hassle. So when I got to college, I think it was something that I was really passionate about, really interested in. And so I think fell in love with it as a kid. And then, as I got older, really saw the value in it and had more of a drive to do it myself.
Yeah, I mean, I love traveling as well. So hearing you talk about that just you know, it inspires me and it makes me, know that there are people out there like me, like, but you're on a whole other level. Like every week you're off somewhere. So it's like goals for sure.
I'm in Chicago more than people think.
Okay.
It just looks like you're traveling all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. She's getting that content.
So I know you mentioned you were really into wellness and you were a distance runner. Tell us a little bit more about that, your wellness journey and your lifestyle as it relates to that.
Yeah, so I'll try and be concise, I think, as like a broad overview. But essentially, I think, growing up, it's funny, my stepmom again was very on trend when it came to wellness and like even ahead of the curve. I mean, she was drinking kombucha in like 2002. And I remember her bringing it into the car once and we're all like, oh, what is that? And now, like, I always have it in my fridge. So I think there were a lot of foundational principles that she kind of taught me, and she was very conscious of what we were putting in our bodies. And I was a little healthier as a child. I think there comes a point where you just want to do what everyone else is doing, eat the Doritos, eat the Lunchables. And I think, she did a good job of trying to balance. But when I was midway through college, I think I got to a point where I was really realizing, and maybe it was like the drinking, the turning up, the going out, that I wanted to be well, but I wanted to be healthy from like the inside out. And so I didn't want to just lose weight, or I didn't want to just look different. I wanted to like feel different, operate, as my best self. And so I started to think about like what I was putting in my body. I didn't have any money at the time, really. So, I was trying to make changes within what I had and what I had access to. But I think, even just starting to be more conscious made a really big difference. And then, I was never a runner growing up. I danced. That was as athletic as I got, and I walked around New York City. But, at that time, again, I was like midway through college, and I was really like, one day I want to run a half marathon. And to me, 13.1 miles seemed crazy. Like, wild,
Wow.
absurd. Yeah. And I could at that point barely run 2 miles, and it took me 5 ever. And I was super tired afterward. But slowly but surely, I started to build up my confidence. I just started running, as long as it took, I was trying to make progress. And then I think, consistency really helped. I worked at the gym in college as one of the many jobs that I had. And so I think I also really let go of like this fear of being a woman lifting in the gym. It's like half the guys who are lifting heavy are doing it wrong. And I actually knew what the correct form was. So like, what was I so nervous about? And so I think, yeah, I kind of got in there, I started exploring and finding what I loved. And I think that was really the beginning for me. College obviously had the major distraction of schoolwork and tests and like trying to graduate. And so I didn't accomplish my goal of running a marathon while I was in college, but once I graduated, I really did turn to fitness and wellness as like, part of what I did in my very little downtime post-grad. And that's where I really started getting into distance running. So I did a lot of my halves in New York in the years following my graduation. And then my first marathon was actually in New York City. And I was supposed to be doing it again last year, but had to postpone that. And so I'll be running again for New York next year. A little bit about my wellness journey so far.
Okay. Nice. That is amazing.
You sound like you have a lot of things. And as you've been getting older, throughout your life, like your ambition has just kind of increased, right? You've been accomplishing goals. I know that you're an entrepreneur. I know you have a brand made by K West. With all of these different things that you're doing, do you think that sometimes people find you intimidating at all? You're beautiful, you're successful, you're doing what you're doing. Do you think that intimidates people?
That's interesting. I never really think about that. I feel like I do think about kind of how people perceive me, but I never think of myself as intimidating. Mm-hmm. Perhaps that's just because I hope I don't come across as in any way better than anyone else. I think, I put in hard work and there's so much behind the scenes that goes into the success that people see, that I try to be real about what got me there, the sacrifices that I continue to make. And it is really crazy to be in a season of my life where I'm starting to realize my dreams and see things come together. But I would suppose, there are potentially people who might feel like I'm intimidating, but I think, I'm always willing to hold the door open. I'm not walking through it alone. I know that there are people to come after me, and there are those that helped to open it before me. So I think I'm very cognizant of that. But I guess I can be a little intense because I do a lot of things, and I'm sure for some people, especially some men, that can probably be scary.
That's funny. It's funny you say that. That's funny.
If that kind of leads into what I was thinking. Do you think that, all the things that you've been doing and how full your life seems to be has hindered you in any way from finding love or being in a romantic relationship that's successful?
Yeah, so I am actually engaged, and so I would say, I do have a relationship that I'm proud of, that is successful, but again, it was not without work. We are in therapy. I am in therapy, not because we have mission critical problems we're trying to figure out, but because we want to build strong communication so that we have a family that is durable. And so I think, it's another area of my life where I really do put energy toward, and I'm very conscious of like the sacrifices I make not impacting this relationship. My partner is phenomenal, and I think what has separated this relationship from anyone I've been in the past is we are truly partners. And he is so supportive, so kind, but will also call me on my BS, which is super helpful. And I think he's really secure in who he is, which is helpful. I think I'm not the type of person where I'm looking for a man who's going to buy me things. Gifts are cool, but if there's something that I really want, I work hard enough that I can buy it on my own. And I think he really sees the value in like the companionship, the partnership. I mean, he's a great travel buddy. And so there's so much about him that I love beyond just, what he might do for a living. And we do completely different things, but I think it works really well. So I will say, it has been hard as I reflect on some of my past relationships. I think, I don't know what it is, but you sometimes want to date someone who you feel like you can fix, or like, you want to kind of be with someone through the work that they need to do, and it doesn't always work out that way. I think, you also, when you are striving for things and you have goals, you need someone who is open to supporting that. And I think, my fiance has goals of his own, he has drive of his own, and we do things differently, but I think we come to the table knowing that when it comes to our partnership, we want to put the effort forward to pour into each other, and to continue to get to know each other. And so, yeah, I think, when he asked me to marry him, I wasn't like, damn, I'm not sure, I can't tell, is this going to work? It was like, I loved him. I was excited about it. And the yes wasn't the hard part. I was just waiting on him to ask. So yeah, I think it hasn't hindered me, but it can definitely be a challenge. And I honestly don't know if I would have the patience to date. I just think I don't love surface level interactions. I don't want to sit through dinner just for you to pay for it. If like you're dry and weird, I'd prefer to buy my own dinner and sit quiet and enjoy it. So yeah, I might have struggled with that a little, but I'm very grateful. We met through mutual friends, and it's been wonderful so far.
That's great. Congratulations. That's awesome. And I wish you guys lots of love and success. That sounds great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Were you about to ask a question, Kayla?
Not yet.
Okay. So I heard while you were talking, Kira, that you all are in therapy and that some of it's kind of hard, right? Can you explain some of the harder parts? Because what you explained just everything sounded amazing. Just explain like some of the challenges that you face, being a very ambitious, very busy woman, in a relationship, you're engaged, so you're moving towards like the final step of marriage.
Yes.
What are the difficulties for us?
Yeah, I mean, listen, for me, marriage is not a sport. I'm getting married once, and both of us really see this as the one time that we're doing it. He may or may not be watching, but I think, it's important to work through your own traumas, work through the baggage that you bring. I've always believed it's not my partner's job to unpack my baggage, it's mine. And so I think, both of us really want to communicate clearly. We want to understand, each other's points of view, frames of reference. And so that's really what our therapy is about, is how we can continue to communicate. And I think it's really helpful sometimes to have an objective third party, who can be there to kind of help you work through really tough conversations. I mean, you're blending families. Both of us have had very wild years. I'm dealing with grief and loss. I'm changing jobs. I'm moving cities. And I think, as I'm navigating all of that, it's really helpful to have him there, but the way that I process grief and loss might be totally different from how he would process it. And sometimes it's hard in those moments to articulate it. So I think the communication is key in continuing to evolve that and then get to a place where we're looking ahead. So when we have kids, there's no surprises. When we're in a high pressure situation, we already know kind of how to work through it, I think is kind of the goal of what we're doing now. But it is difficult. I work a lot, I have big dreams and big ambitions, but I think I really do try to balance. So date night has become something that we both commit to. And every Friday we're doing something together. Unless, someone has to be out of town, we put away work, we put away school. He's getting a graduate degree. And we, talk to each other, talk about our weeks, and just kind of catch up. I think, we went from being in a long distance relationship to living together. And at first it was like, oh, you're here all the time. But no, you still have to be intentional about connecting, because you can be ships passing in the night, two people who are in the same space, but not truly on the same page. And so, yeah, I think, it can be hard, because I do need to be mindful of not just working all the time, but showing up as a partner as well. But I think, we do a really good job of balancing, and there are other things that I've chosen to sacrifice. So I don't really go out socially as much. I don't really, drink anymore, because I want to be able to wake up early so that in the evenings, like, we can spend time together. I think, we challenge each other to try new things. And then when we go away on vacation, it's not always together. I do travel solo. I'll travel with friends and family, but that's another way that we kind of connect and have new experiences and keep things fresh and exciting.
Nice. So at what point did you guys decide, like, that those things were necessary? Like, was there like something that happened and you guys said, okay, we need to establish like a date night, or we need to like put some rules of engagement? Or did that come from like through the therapy? Or like, how did that kind of like happen? Or was it
That's
just
a
like
great
natural?
question. I think some things were natural. So, like, I ended up coming to stay with him during the beginning of COVID because we were supposed to
Okay.
go on a trip. And I remember I was getting my hair braided and like I shed a tear when the president said, the borders are closed. So it was like I was holding on to this trip for dear
Yeah.
life. And everyone was like, it's not going to happen. Like, where we were going was really close to Italy. So it was like, you got to let that go. But, anyways, for me, it was really about spending time with him. And that's why I used to be so invested in the trips that we would take together, because it was time for us to really connect. And so I ended up kind of staying with him. And I think we naturally fell into some patterns that worked. So I know it's stereotypical. And every time we think about changing it, it's like, it's not broke, don't fix it. But like, I cook and I love to create, nourishing meals that are like fun and exciting and interesting. And he does the dishes. I hate doing dishes. I've always hated doing the dishes. Like, it works. So I think there are some things like that where it's like we kind of naturally fell into something that work well. I tend to get up a little bit earlier, and so I walk our dog in the morning. He tends to stay up a lot later, so he walks him at night. And like there wasn't a point where we sat down and said, okay, you walk him in the morning, I'll walk him at night. Like it just kind of happened. And I think, even us like living together, I went there for 2 weeks and I was texting someone today, like, I don't know how I ended up staying the rest of my life. I'm glad I did. But I think some of those things weren't as kind of clear in conversation. I think date night really resulted from like, I want to be able to be present, and it's helpful for me to be able to plan. And so if we have a time established, it doesn't really matter what we do. And there's a bunch of restaurants to try, and I'm probably tired of cooking by Friday, so it's a good excuse. But I think that was like, okay, this is the time that works for us. Usually he's tired and kind of burnt out. And so this is a chance for us to just have fun and, be together. And I think there's no like, it doesn't have to be one certain thing or one certain way. It's just about us connecting. And then I think, in terms of communication, that's a skill that we've really sharpened through therapy. I'm a huge fan of couples therapy, a huge fan of individual therapy. I think we all have things that we're working through. We all have vantage points that we've cultivated based on our life experiences. And the person that you are starting a family with comes from a completely different background a lot of times. Even if you grew up in, similar situations, your parents did things differently. And so working through those things to get ahead of how you want to build your family, take what you want, leave what you don't, I think is kind of what we're working on. And that's definitely also helped us where we sometimes like don't know what the rules of engagement should be or how we want to move forward, to really find clarity and just to have more productive, difficult conversations.
That's a good
I like
answer.
I like the part that you said about, I think you said you hate washing the dishes, so he washes them. You might be home earlier or later or whatever to take the dog out, and when you're not there, he does it. You all kind of have found this balance where you work together to get things that need to be done. Um, as you may know, in these social media streets, there's a lot of talk about submission and gender roles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just wondering, would you consider yourself a submissive fiance, soon to be wife?
No, I don't think so. It's funny because I think that there are people that I've dated in the past that have wanted that, and it's just never really been me. I'm opinionated. I'm sometimes quicker to form a thought. And I think we have a really great, delicate balance of like, I will say my fiance is very good at being very calm, being very rational, being very logical. And like, he's willing to kind of like let things go. Like, he doesn't always form an opinion as quickly. But if I'm doing too much, which happens on occasion, he's like, okay, sis, you got to do less. And I respect that it's coming from a place of love. I think, I appreciate that he loves me for who I am and doesn't try to change that about me. I think that, he also grew up in a place where he saw women who were achieving things. His mom is incredible. I love her. And I think that, he saw an example of what a strong Black woman could be. And he's always been very supportive and appreciative of that. So I'm super grateful because I have not had the best experiences dating in the past every single time. And so, yeah, I wouldn't consider myself submissive at all. But I do think, there are some gender norms that we happen to align with, and it's not because I'm a woman so I should cook. It's like, it's a skill I have, it's something that I enjoy doing, and it's not a skill that he is really honing, and I just don't like doing the dishes. I could do them, I did do them. It's not difficult, I just don't enjoy it, and so it works for us. I think it is really about partnership and figuring out what works for you and your partner. I think when it comes to like earning and finances, like, he's fine with me doing me, and I'm like, have your job, do your thing. Career is important. And so I think to that end too, like, we both come to the table wanting to kind of provide, and it works.
So I know
Nice. I mean, I love this. Listen, I love all of this. I'm here for the partnership. I'm here for the whatever roles work best in the relationship. That's how they should work. But there are a lot of people in these YouTube streets that just don't think that it can work that way. And I want to know why. I want to know what you think about like those people that think that. Like the people that think that it'll never be successful unless people have certain roles, or people are submissive, or if people are what is it, agreeable? What's the terminology they use in these streets? Agreeable, non-confrontational, less talking. What's all this?
Oh no, I'm like, let's put it all on the table. I will say, I am trying to get my fiance to tell me like what he wants, because I'm like, we're in an environment where I want to make you happy, and what you want, like, if I can do it, if it makes sense, like, we're going to do that. And I think it's kind of the same, for me, it's like, we're coming from this place of like, we want each other to genuinely be happy. And so I think that building the trust is really crucial. And, I will say we have gotten to the point where our relationship only needs to make sense to us. And I do talk about our relationship a little bit on social media, but he isn't a core part of my content, because it is something that like, we just don't see the value of having tons of other opinions on, positive or negative. And so I think as we approach things, it's like, okay, we try to focus on what do we need? How do we kind of exist in a harmonious, helpful way, and less about how it should be done, or, what other people think. And, I think too, we both try to reserve our judgments around other people in their relationships, because what works for us might not work for everyone else. And, what everyone else is doing is probably not going to work for us. But I do think it's hard sometimes, right? Because we all have different experiences in relationships. And I think, we are two very different but similar people that have found a great way of working together. But, it's hard. I think both of us had to come to the table willing to make change, willing to listen, willing to do things differently. And I think, therapy is only helpful if both people come to the table and they're open to it. But yeah, I think that, there's a lot to be said about that mutual trust and kind of just doing what works for you. And I think that's the same on an individual level, right? Like, whatever brings you joy, whatever works for you doesn't have to work for anyone else. And yeah, I think, you might be pleasantly surprised too by, if you are in a safe space, and you are open to change, how much people are kind of willing to grow with you too.
Yeah, but people have to be willing to hear and willing to respect that other opinion and be open-minded. Then if they think that there's only one way to do things, and there are a lot of people that think that, especially like, in the manosphere. So
yeah. And I mean, my fiance and I do not agree on everything. It's not all, diamonds and rainbows. We definitely are still working on tons of things, right? But I think we have committed to growing together, and we are both open to new ways of doing things. I also think, one thing is like about me that he appreciates is that, I'm very self-reflective. So we can have an argument or a disagreement, and I'll go back and really think through like what I could have done better, or like, if he has feedback, I really do listen to it. And I think it's kind of the same in reverse as well. And, we do try and maintain respect. I think that's really important. Once you start getting crazy and hitting below the belt, I mean, there are things you just can't take back. And I think, we both try and really be focused on sharing our opinions, valuing each other's viewpoint, but being respectful at the end of the day.
Do you feel like do you feel like that? I mean, do you feel like you had to do anything? Um, do you feel like you had to change at all? Like, do you feel like you had to tone down anything about yourself, travel less, anything like that? Do you feel like you had to make any type of adjustments to what you were doing before, to be in this successful engagement that you're in now?
I don't think so. I mean, it's funny because at the beginning of November, I really, after just having a crazy year, I needed to be alone and like think before the holidays. And so I went on a 10-day solo trip. And my fiance didn't really bat an eye. I mean, halfway through, he was like, "Where are you at again?" I'm like, "You have my location, bro." But I think, I haven't had to change anything. It's not kind of like he has ever forced me to be someone I'm not. I feel like he is the first person, and I guess this is why we're getting married, who has really appreciated me for who I am. But that being said, I think building a home together, I don't want to leave the same way that I once did. I like being home. I love our dog. So like there are things that I do now and that I prioritize differently now, not because he asked me to or not because I need to, but because I genuinely want to. And I think that's different. So like even with cooking, right? It's like at no point does he say, "You must cook for me 5 days a week." I mean, sometimes I put wild pressure on myself to be making fresh, new, creative things every day, which is kind of ridiculous. But I think he's always so appreciative and I find it fun. And so I'm doing more of that than I ever did. But honestly, no. I mean, he's never asked me to be different. I think there are definitely things about my personality and like, ways I've done things that are helpful if you're in a situation where you need to kind of maintain your own safety and, you're not in a safe relationship. But I think a lot of those things I've learned to like let go of. Defense mechanisms are not necessary. And again, it's like being right is kind of irrelevant when you're trying to build a home together, build a life together. It's like, how do we do this in the best way possible? And so, yeah, I think, he's never asked me to be someone different, but I definitely have grown and changed as we've been, progressing in our relationship and dating and living together. There's so much balance that's required for that. But yeah, I'm very grateful.
Okay, so it's been kind of just a natural progression in your relationship. You've kind of grown as a person, changed as a person, but not because you felt obligated to. It's just now
Yeah.
you do this more often, or you want to do that more often.
Absolutely. And I will say, like, we have struggled. There have been points where we're like, we might not make it. Like, we are just not seeing eye to eye. Like, I think, again, it really does take two people who want to do the work, who want to, delve deeply into how they can create a sustainable, happy environment. But it is not always easy. And again, like, I'm grateful that we have a foundation that allows us to kind of work through challenges. But there are definitely times where it's been hard, but I think, I appreciate him for who he is as well. And I don't endeavor to change that. And I think we both try and celebrate each other as best as we can.
I mean, that's beautiful.
I heard you mention solo trips a couple of times. Um, how does your fiance feel? I know you said he kind of, was like, "Where are you even at?" Like one of the times, but like, has there ever been an issue in terms of you going on solo trips and things like that, or do you all just have that trust where it's just not even a problem? How do you all?
Yeah, I think it really comes back to trust and like knowing your partner. So my fiance would never travel solo, not because he can't, but because it just for him isn't, the same. He loves being around people. He has a really great group of friends. But for me, I guess from the beginning of us dating and traveling and like him just kind of knowing how I recharge, I think he really understands that it's a part of what I need. And I think this year in particular, he really understood that time for me was important. I needed to be reminded of my own resilience, my own kind of like power and control, over my life and just the excitement of being somewhere new. I love speaking Spanish. I love, being able to kind of think just on my own. And so I feel like he really respects that, even though it's not something that fuels him in the same way. He can understand and appreciate why it's important for me. It's not like I go 10 days and I'm like, okay, I'll text you when I get back. Like, we talk about it. I share, what's going on. He has my location along with my dad, of course, just, for safety reasons too. But he does trust my travel planning. I do travel and plan most of our trips too. So I think, there's that trust that I'm planning safely. I'm not putting myself in any dangerous situations. And I'm just kind of using the time to think. I am fairly introverted and I do a lot of extroverted activities. And he's a little more extroverted. So I think, just as we kind of respect and understand where each other is coming from, it's something that he has kind of grown to understand. It's just a part of who I am. And again, he's never asked me to change it. I think it's gotten harder because I do like traveling with him. I like having him around, but I don't like boarding our dog. And so there is kind of a delicate balancing act. And so, yeah, I will say I travel more with him than I do on my own, just because it is enjoyable. It's fun. And, it's nice to have him with me. But I do still love solo travel. And it's something that I was missing too with the pandemic.
Yeah, because the pandemic definitely put a pin in travel for a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed that you said that you kind of recharge sometimes with your solo trips, right? And your fiance understands that, appreciates it, he trusts you, he understands that about you, so it's no issue. I know that you're, really into mindfulness and just kind of holistically being well, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of want to ask another question. I want to know, how do you find like work life relationship balance with all the things you have going on? You're an entrepreneur, you have a fiance, you travel. How do you find balance there to make yourself feel good and at peace with everything that's going on in your life?
It's difficult. And I think I was at one point chasing a concept of what I thought balance would look like, or what it might look like for someone else versus what it looks like for me. I think, I've also adapted the same mentality that what makes sense for me doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. And so I at no point ever say, you should live your life just like me. You should do everything that I do. I do try and say there is a very delicate balance, and I have ways of managing it that maybe everyone doesn't always see. But I think as a part of just my love for my fiance, I've never wanted to sacrifice our relationship. And so I do ask him, although he is very, very supportive, like, if you feel like I'm not showing up at home, call me out. I take my responsibilities very seriously. And so when it comes to our time together, when it comes to our dog, when it comes to things that we are managing as a unit, I really do kind of put that at the top. I think my family is very important. I would say, I'm not the greatest with keeping up with acquaintances. That's something that I've chosen to sacrifice. But I really do feel like it allows me to pour better into my loved ones. I think, trying to take days off, it doesn't necessarily look like the typical weekends that folks might have. And again, I don't drink as much anymore outside like I once was, but for me, that allows me to do the work that I want to do. At the same time, like, I don't stop my fiance from doing that. If you want to go out and turn up, you do that, honey. Like, I love that for him. And I think we have a balance where, like, I might go on trips, he might go turn up, and we do what we need to do to kind of pour into ourselves. But yeah, it is a delicate balance. And I think, there are some weeks where I feel like I'm crushing the balance part of it. And then there's others where I'm exhausted. But I think I really do lean on like my workouts. You can see in the corner a little bit of my tonal equipment. I'm a huge fan, but my workouts in the morning, I think, are crucial. Waking up early, going to sleep early, and like having boundaries too. I mean, I tell my fiance all the time, I love you, we're having so much fun, but like, it's my bedtime and I got to go to bed because I got to get up because I need my time before I start the day. So I think that those are kind of some of the ways that I maintain balance. But again, for someone else, working out might feel like a chore or something that they don't love doing. For me, I'm like, this is time to be present, to focus on my breath, to be in my body, and to just do what I'm doing in the moment. So yeah, that's why I balance.
Is your
It's
fiance also
necessary.
into it? Is your fiance
What'd you
also
say, Kay?
the health and wellness aspect? Like, is
Yeah.
he really heavily into that, or does he like support you, but he's not really heavily into it?
So it's interesting because he is definitely into working out, and I think fitness and wellness, but in a different way. And he will always try anything once. He has done yoga with alpacas. we were visiting Hawaii. He's done Ligurian Pilates classes, and if it's an event or something I need his support with, like he'll always show up for me. But he has different ways that he likes to work out and different things that he likes to do. He's big into basketball. I'm not really into like organized sports. I don't do well with throwing balls, and I got hit once in middle school with a ball and like never looked at it again. But I think we have different ways of going about it, but it's still something that's really important to us. And I think it's about us, again, self-care, pouring into yourself. But yeah, I will say another aspect of how we balance is like getting help. And I really do try and like get help where I can, and like plan ahead where I can, so that we're maximizing our time. So like deep cleaning our home, I would love to do that, but if it's $50 for me to get someone to come deep clean and that's 3 hours we have to spend together, those are some of the decisions that I might make. I'm grateful to be in a place where I can do that, but I try to think about where only we can show up or only I can show up, and then kind of get assistance or pour back into the community where I can too.
Nice. So I had another question, because it leads to what I think that some people in certain spaces of ours here on YouTube misunderstand. So can you talk a little bit about I personally believe that there is a culture of relationships that is heavily rooted in not attachment, but like codependency. There's a heavily rooted thing in the space about codependency, that we need to be doing everything together, that we need to, that just like, I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't understand like your how you and your fiance do you guys relationship, because there's this culture that's so codependent, that's like, oh, you're gonna go somewhere without your person for 5 days, and it's like, I'm my own person.
Yeah, I think some of that is toxic.
A little bit, yeah, to that, in terms of like, do you think that the culture of romance is does have some unhealthy codependency features, or do you think that like just everyone does their relationship different?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, everyone is different. And I would never say the way that my fiance and I, manifest and work together is the way that anyone else should, have their relationship. I think what works for you is great. From a codependency and attachment standpoint, I think it can be very dangerous when you don't look at what it's rooted in. So we have worked really hard on building trust. My fiance goes out, I sleep soundly, he'll come back, I know he's safe, and I think we really worked hard to be in a place where we don't need to be together 24/7 to love each other, to support each other, to show up for each other. And we recognize that we recharge and we practice self-care in different ways. And it's not to say that we never do things together, or that, in the future we don't want to do more things together, or, there are times where we wish we could, do certain things and it would be different. But I think for the most part, there really is that trust and respect. And I think some of that codependency, some of that attachment is rooted in not trusting your partner, or rooted in, just like trauma and things like that you haven't processed. And so I would encourage people to really look inward, and talk through where that's coming from. I think, I love spending time with my fiance. Like, we can have fun doing nothing. And, for me, even if we're sitting at home on the couch doing nothing, like, I really enjoy being around him. But at the same time, I think, it is important to still have your own friends. We don't need to be friends with all the same people all the same times. And like, I think there's like guys going out with their guy friends. Like, I'm not a guy. I don't want to be a guy.
Right.
I don't really like, hours and hours of football. Like, it's fine. I think, that's not to say that I won't go to the bar and cheer for our team, and like, I won't show up, but every Sunday, all season, like, that's not the best for me, right? So I think, we've gotten to a place where we can really trust each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if you are together constantly and that's because you truly love each other and you happen to have the same friends, and it makes sense for your relationship, do that.
Right.
I think
Right.
for
Right.
us, we respect each other's friends. We, enjoy and spend time with each other's friends, but we ultimately are still our own people. And I do think, in terms of the longevity of our relationship, we do want to be together forever. And so we are really trying to, continue to grow as people together, but also to have our own things and, to still be ourselves, if that makes sense.
No, it makes plenty of sense to me. And so I relate to you so much on this just because like in my career, I've been in media, journalism, been in, publicity and all these different things. So a part of my career is going out, meeting people, doing these different things. And there's sometimes we're in these spaces where people like don't understand that. Or like even when we were talking about like the Leonardo DiCaprio thing, and it's just like people overanalyze sometimes just like the interactions between like just people that like, I don't know. I think, or do you think that it could be because the world or this country anyway is like so over sexualized that like every interaction is seen as possibly sexual, and so it's like, oh, you're going out without me, someone could possibly talk to you and then it could turn into some sexual, I don't know, I'm trying to understand what it is that people, what like issue people have with not need like do like having your own part of your life, even if you are married or whatever, still doing things with your friends, still like having a part of your life that that person is not always involved in. And I don't know, that's why I brought up the codependency, because there's like people that I know that would be like, my girl's going on a trip without me, and like that's the whole, I mean I'm on a trip right now, right? None of my friends, boyfriends, or husbands have any problem with us being here on this trip for 4 or 5 days. You know what I'm saying? Like, but there are people that are like, I don't know. I guess it is trust. Because if you
I
trust
think
your partner, then why would it matter that they're somewhere else, you know?
I think it's trust, but I also think there's an element of confidence. Like, I know how much I bring to the table. And so, yes, sex is a part of it, but I bring so much more to my partner's life that, I would hope that that's more important to him than whatever fleeting thought might be there, or, kind of fleeting person might be around. And I think there's just so much more, again, that like we're building, that I think there's not really a one night thing that someone can kind of compare that to. I think on my end as well, I really respect my fiance. I respect his patience. I respect, his love for me. I respect, again, what we're building. And so the thought doesn't cross my mind. I interact with men all the time. I interact with women all the time. And I think, it's a part of my profession as well, right? Like, I'm going to events, I'm meeting people. But I think the underlying trust and the confidence is really what kind of helps us not start to see it in any kind of like negative light. I think too, like, if I ever have a question, I'll ask. And I think my
Yeah.
fiance is empowered to ask as well. And a lot of times I think the way things might appear, or again, if you're rooted in this place of like, I don't trust you, there's so much more that you can extrapolate on what's actually happening that can be damaging, unhealthy, confusing, and just not true all the time. So, yeah, I would say the honesty, the trust, and the confidence are really important. But I do think lots of things are over sexualized. And honestly, this is another reason why I don't really share my relationship. Not because it's not great, not because I don't have tons of pictures of us, but because, again, I think it's more for people to analyze, more for people to have thoughts on. And I do respect having something that's private. Again, not because there's anything wrong or because I'm not happy, but because I do want to kind of protect our privacy as well as we like, go through this process and work together for a long time to come.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. It's crazy.
So in your relationship, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and I had a question about just the dynamic, right, between you and your fiance. Because I know you have some views that some people would consider, I don't know, modern or whatever. But
Here we go.
that's a whole nother topic. Yeah. But do you think that there is a leadership like within your relationship, or do you both kind of lead on what you are good at or what you want to lead on? Or is he the leader, just the final word is his, or you're the leader, the final word is yours? Or is everything kind of like we work together and come to some kind of conclusion as a
I
unit?
think it depends. I feel like some tasks are more collaborative than others. And I think, we try and lead in spaces where it makes sense, where we feel most confident. I think, I'm a little better at like scheduling, planning far out. And there are certain things I like to do. So I kind of lean into those things. I think, my fiance is great at other things. He's great at saving, managing money. Like, I think there are some skills that like he's built too. And so I think we try to lean into those. And then if it is something that like requires collaboration, we talk through it. I feel like we try really hard not to be super petty. So like, I couldn't tell you down to the dollar who spent what on what. I think for massive things, yes, we track it in what makes sense. But like for our dog, I'm not like, I bought Joey $30 of food this week. Where's my 15? Or like, I don't like, we don't stress little things like that. And so I think it does help, because sometimes I feel like when you get too caught up in like the micro details, you lose the point. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that one of us is like a leader. I think it really depends on like what the subject matter is and like what type of decision needs to be made. But I think for a lot of the big stuff, it really is collaborative. So like if we were to buy a house, which is something we've been talking about, it's like, we weigh our different perspectives, we talk through our different career goals, and we have conversations. And so I think, yeah, that's where the communication again becomes so key. And that's why it's something that we're working so hard on, because there's always going to be stuff to talk about and work through. It just gets more intense, I think, as you start to get older, build families and all that stuff.
Do you ever get any pushback from your family about your relationship and the dynamics that you all have? Or
No,
they just,
not really. I think another thing that I've learned is that, therapy is a place for me to discuss some of the things that are going on. And, my parents have great perspective, but sharing the entirety of my relationship with them isn't necessarily healthy either, because they love me and they form opinions. And, I can't kind of expect for them to be unbiased, I guess. But I think, I haven't had any pushback. I mean, my fiance is really great, incredible. He's been, supportive really from the beginning, and it has not always been easy. I'm sure there isn't a relationship in the world that has been, but I think, at the end of the day, our parents also respect the fact that we like love and respect each other. We show up for each other. And yeah, so I haven't gotten any pushback, but I would say my parents are modern Caribbean. So, they definitely grew up in more strict households, and I think, approached us with a little bit more flexibility. And I think as long as I'm happy, that's really what they're looking for.
Most parents are, but there are other parents out here that could care less about that, and they want you to do what they want you to do with your entire life.
That's very true, and I'm grateful. I think my parents have been very open to me living my life as I want to live it. And I think, there's been a lot of change over the past couple of years with the pandemic, me moving away from New York. But I think, thankful for texting, FaceTiming, and all those things. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to ask a little bit about the friend circle, because I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm assuming maybe we're close in age. And these are some perplexing times. Things are changing. You know what I'm saying? We're going from like being, 20s, to moving towards like people are buying houses and having babies, and the dynamics and the friendships are different as well. So is your friend circle involved with a lot of like married people or people in relationships, or is it a mix? And does that impact kind of why you said that you maybe don't go out as much and things like that? Or is it that just that's not?
It's a bunch of things. I think I'm trying to think of like how many married friends I have. I do think that like my friend circle is varied. So Taylor, I love her. She's the co-founder of Activism Along With Me, an anti-racism wellness program, and she is also engaged. I think a lot of times we bond because we are in, a similar life stage. So we're talking about getting ready for wedding, navigating, bringing families together. She has learned a lot as well that she shares. And I think, we sometimes share perspective, and a lot of times it's not even like micro level, I'm talking shit about my fiance. It's more just like, how do you learn how to communicate about this? Or, what are the ways that you kind of navigated the holidays? And it's like kind of getting ideas. So I appreciate her for that. My really close friend who I have been close with since high school, I think we talk about relationships as well. She's not engaged, but I still think in a lot of ways we're still in parallel times in our lives. And so there's so much we have in common, so much that we talk about. We're building businesses. We're talking about, how we kind of balance hustle and relaxation and what that looks like. And then I have, some other friends as well that are in various stages of relationship, engagement, marriage, and singledom. I love when my single guy friends tell me all about their dating adventures. It's so interesting. And it's funny to like see the other side and just hear about it, right? Like, I'm never going to be dating again and I have no desire to, but it's just like really interesting to hear some of the things that happen and how they go down. I have some, guy friends that are in relationships. I wonder if I have any, I can't think of off the top of my head, ones who are like married or who have been married for a while. But I think a part of why I maybe don't go out as much, I came to the realization a couple weeks ago, is a lot of my close friends are in New York. A lot of my family's in New York. And I know some folks in Chicago, but I do, like being in our home now. And so it's harder for me to leave. And so, yeah, I think that that's kind of a part of it. My fiance's friend circle, I mean, he has a group of really close guy friends. They're all really great. A lot of them are in relationships. And so I think, at varying stages. A couple of them are engaged. So it's like, folks are running the gamut there. And then, he has a lot of single guy friends in Chicago, some that are in relationships too. So I think it's kind of a mix. I was telling him recently, like, we need to find some more young Black married couples, like once we get there. But I think too, like, again, I love people for who they are. And I never want to compare relationships. I think everyone does things differently. And like, I would never want us to get to a place where we're like, oh, they're doing XYZ, like we should do XYZ, or like, for other people to see us and be like, oh, they do, this, like, why don't we do that? It's like, we're happy, you're happy. But we are thinking about the future, family planning, what makes sense for us. And also trying to just enjoy every stage that we're in, because, we'll never be engaged again. So we should enjoy it while we can.
Yeah, for sure. Enjoyed every stage. I love that.
Did you intentionally wait to have children? I mean, I would recommend that people wait until they're ready.
I recommend that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
was that a decision that you made? Like, I'm just not going to have kids until I'm married.
Yes and no. I think, I knew that this was the person that I wanted to be with before he proposed. And so, I think had we been in a place where our life was set up for children, whether we were married or not, with him, I would have been willing to take that step. Ultimately, though, I think both of us want to be in a place where we can cultivate a successful environment for kids. So it's not to say that we're like, oh, we're waiting until we have X amount of money per se, but we do want to, have some more stability. So during the pandemic, I didn't know whether I was going to him in Connecticut or we ended up moving. So it was like so much was up in the air, and that's not really a great environment for a child. And then I think that, if you think through kind of like all the logistics around raising a baby, I'm like, I want to have time for that. And right now, we're both kind of focusing on our careers, and it's important for us to continue to get to know each other. So yeah, I would say that it really is kind of a little bit of a balancing act, but it is a conscious decision. I think in my mind, like every other person who's young, I was like, I'm gonna find the love of my life. I'm gonna get married at 28. I'm gonna have kids at 29, and like that's gonna be how it is. And I think as you start to like grow up and realize like adulting is a whole lot. And when you have kids, you really need to shift your focus to creating a successful life for them. I think, you kind of look at things a little bit differently. And I feel like there's still a little bit of stuff that we want to do together. that we want to experience together. And like now's the time to be selfish. I'm like, you want to go out and watch basketball all day and like, you know, turn up with your friends, like do it. Because when we have a 6-month old at home, like, you know, that's not going to make as much sense. Or like, you know, when I want to travel for 10 days solo, like do it. Because when you have, you know, a kid or when you're pregnant, like you can't do that. So yeah. And I think, you know, he's excited. I feel like people are starting to have more kids. You get excited about parenthood and fatherhood. And, you know, I think he'll be an incredible dad, but I'm also not rushing because, you know, having a being growing in my body for 9 months is going to take over. And I'm enjoying, you know, being in control at the moment. And I want to be at a place where, you know, when it's time, I can be a great home. So yeah, low stress, solid environment, and like a little more life balance on the work-life balance side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. I completely understand. It's interesting that, well, it's not really interesting, I guess, but I've heard it before, but I wanted to point out that you talked about that it wasn't necessarily like a marriage that you were trying to be in before having children. You just wanted to be like in a stable situation. And, I just want you to talk a little bit more about that before we go to a few callers and then kind of start to wrap things up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like honestly, I'm sure like everyone else, I had this picture perfect, idyllic way that I was envisioning my life at one point, and I was probably like 12 or 13. And I think I always was like, yeah, I'll get married before I have kid. But like once you're an adult, you realize things are complicated, things happen. And I think, you know, there got to a point where my now fiance and I did really feel like we were going to be life partners. And if we had gotten to a situation where we were in a space to have kids at that time, I think, you know, we might have done that. But I feel like the pandemic just really wasn't a time where we felt like that should be a priority, because we were really working through our next steps, and so much was up in the air again with like where we were going to live and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think, you know, I don't judge anyone who has kids that's not married. I think, again, like the older I get, the more I can appreciate that life is complicated. But I also think for both of us, you know, we're children of divorced parents. Marriage is forever, kind of, but kids are like really forever. And I think that's one thing that, you know, my parents passed down as well, is like, you know, I don't want to bring a kid into an environment where they're not going to have, I don't want to say a good experience, because life is life, but I don't want to bring them into like a hectic situation. And I think it's just so important for us to build a solid foundation before we get into that. And I think a solid foundation can look many different ways. Some people call it marriage, but it doesn't have to be that. But yeah, I think, you know, we will get married. I'm excited about that. It'll be cool to call him my husband. I feel like I'll just be getting used to the fiance thing, and then boom, it'll be time. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
No, I love that too, though, because when you want to really enjoy the time of like being engaged and then being married, and like enjoying that time before a whole other human, like you're on their schedule actually. So that just changes the dynamic so much. So I totally agree with that. I think having that time, and enjoying those steps with your partner is like the best thing ever. For real.
Let's get some callers up here.
Yes, let's take some callers. Interested
So,
to see who we have tonight.
Joe.
Hey, Joe, how's it going?
Good evening, ladies. How you guys doing?
Good. Welcome.
Good. So she was talking about how like you're like not apart in a relationship, like the steps. That doesn't really like make sense. Like,
Wait,
Kayla,
what? Can you ask your question again?
like Kayla, like what you said back before, like you was talking about how like if you're in a relationship with your your husband, and like but you're talking about like the steps, like it doesn't like really matter until like you guys actually get engaged. But doesn't that matter if you guys are like doing that together as a
Yeah,
couple?
we mean enjoying the steps
No,
of.
because you're talking about how like you want to like do stuff not together.
Oh, you mean like go like hanging out with your friends,
Yeah,
traveling, anything like that? Okay, not with your partner. Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so what was the question about that?
Like that's what I'm talking about. Like
But what though?
I mean, I think is the question around how that works as you continue to build together.
Yeah. I want
Okay.
you to elaborate on that.
Oh, absolutely. So I think that it's a balance, right? And again, it's very different depending on your relationship and who you're with and like your level of maturity and I think where you're at in life. I feel like to be fair, we had a whole pandemic where literally it was just me and him all day every day because you couldn't go outside, you couldn't really do anything. And so I think we did get a lot of time together, but I think ultimately, we also don't love all of the same things. So I suck at playing basketball. So if you're having your league game and going out for drinks after, I don't necessarily feel like I need to come. I can come support, and I definitely have and will do that. But I think there are just some activities where, if it brings you joy, then I'm all for that. And I think there are some things that I love that my fiance doesn't love as much. So, if I'm going to a yoga or a Pilates class and that's not something that he loves, but I have girlfriends that really like doing that, or even friends, who are in the workout space that do that more often, I think, we're totally comfortable with each other continuing to have friendships. And I know who his friends are. He knows who my friends are, but I think, we don't always have to be together all the time to spend time together that's meaningful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but like the solo trips though, like you going on solo trips by yourself?
I sure am. Yeah. And he has never questioned it. I'm very grateful for that because I have been in relationships in the past where it's confusing. I think it's a unique concept for, people who like to be around other people often. But for me, I am very introverted, but I work in a lot of roles and I do a lot of things where I have to talk to people all day and I get so tired. And so for me, solo trips are nice because I can wander around when I want. I can go to sleep when I want. There's no pressure to go out or to do anything that just doesn't feel aligned with what I want to do that day. And we FaceTime, we text, and, he knows where I'm at. He has my location. But I think for me, this year it was really important as a part of my own grieving process just to really remember and be able to think through, that for myself and to be able to do it in the comfort and space of solitude because I am someone who does like time alone. And when you live with someone full time, even if you love them with your whole heart, which I do, I think finding moments on your own to really think through and process deep stuff that takes time is just difficult. But yeah, he trusts me and I'm appreciative of that. And yeah, I was solo and I enjoyed it. Um,
Yeah, and grief is another thing as well. Like everyone deals with grief in different ways, and you definitely have to do what's best for you because that can be very heavy.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
can be. And I think it's something that you also, as much as you can have support from a partner on, you do have to kind of work through it on your own to a degree because you're the one that's living with it in a lot of cases. And so, yeah, I'm appreciative of him kind of understanding that process. And that's not to say that like we didn't miss each other and like, I wasn't really excited to be back and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think it kind of comes back to that trust too. And like, he got to kind of turn up and there was nothing at home for him to really stay around for. So I think it can be rejuvenating for both people depending on what you love.
Okay, yeah, that's understandable.
Joe, did you have I feel like you kind of maybe had an issue with solo trips. What's the issue that
Oh no,
oh,
I don't
you're
have an issue
going
with it.
alone on like
No,
what is an issue?
if my girl's trying to go on a solo trip, like I want to go with her. Like that's
Then it wouldn't be a solo trip.
Solo trip. It's not a solo trip. It's a couples trip now.
okay.
It's a
Yeah, like,
vacation.
yeah, but like
It's a vacation.
if you want to
Solo
call it?
means like by yourself.
Yeah.
But it's like, but how long though? How long are solo trips?
So
However you
I don't travel as solo as much anymore. Part of it is logistics. We have an 80-pound dog who it can be very difficult and expensive to board. And so part of it is strategic. Like there are times where we don't travel together because someone is staying home. This trip was a little longer because I wanted to go to particular destinations. I was saving money. I was getting crafty with it. And so I was gone for 10 days. But this holiday season is just really difficult. And so for me, it was necessary in order to keep my sanity and like pour into myself before I attempt to pour into others. But usually I don't think I've gone on a solo trip really over the past several years as we've been dating because it's hard. Like my fiance's fun and I like traveling with him, but I think this was kind of a particular circumstance. And then, usually I would say I might do like a long weekend somewhere, but I definitely don't travel solo as often as I once did when I was single or living in a place where I didn't necessarily love my home as much. But I get that. I think it takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of maturity. And it takes a lot of like really knowing your partner too, to understand how important it is.
I think it's kind of funny how people saying it takes so much trust and da da da. But for me, I just feel like it's either you trust your partner or you don't. Because if your partner's going to do something, they don't need to go on a 10-day trip to do it. They could just tell you they're going to work or
Facts.
to the gas station. Like, if it's either you trust your partner or you don't. Your partner, and I don't know. That's just how I feel. Like, if someone's going to cheat on you or do something that they're not supposed to, they don't need to go on a trip to do it. They're gonna do it right there in your city where you live. And come home like everything's normal. If they're that kind of person, then that's the kind of person that they are.
Are you gonna let them know though?
What you mean?
Are you gonna let them know if you cheat?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been cheated on before, and I think for me, it's just it's something that I don't really stand for, and so it's never something that I would do. I think, you know, at the end of the day, I really care about my fiance and I care about what we're building, and so I just don't ever think of it as something that I would want to do with my time. I solo travel because I like to be alone. And so I'm not going to like try and mess up my alone time with someone who just doesn't matter really. I think, you know, if I were to cheat, I would want to be honest with my partner just because, again, like I'm not really great at lying. I don't want to be in bed with someone. And like, I don't know, it's weird to me, but I think, you know, it's not really something that crosses our minds at this point. And I think we've worked so hard to build the trust, the communication that like, it doesn't even make sense anymore to ruin it all for a fleeting whatever it might be.
Right.
But yeah.
So you cheated though. You went to like that. That doesn't
Wait, what?
You cheated on your man.
Who
So
said
what
that?
did what did your man do?
I haven't cheated, and he hasn't cheated.
I'm about to say, who said there was cheating? Who said there was cheating going on?
No.
There are women listening that have been on a solo trip. Please call in.
I mean, I wasn't cheating. I think if I had ever been in a,
I mean, it's not solo, but I'm, yeah.
Had I ever cheated, I would tell him, but it's not been something I've done.
So it's just something that you're just speaking on. Like
you asked her.
Well, you brought it up, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you asked her a question. She answered it.
So it was hypothetical. She didn't cheat.
Right. She's not speaking like
no.
Right. It's all a hypothetical for the purpose of your question.
And held you accountable for your answer. Like what?
Right.
Reality. So
it's not reality. Cheating is not reality.
It's and a solo trip. Yeah, it's not.
People are faithful. It's not hard. I just think that people there's a culture that says that lacking self-control is okay. And that's why, you know, but it's not.
Yeah, I think for me, it breaks down to respect more than anything. I really do respect my fiance, the time he's put in, the patience and the love that he's given me. That, you know, cheating for me, it goes against all of that, and it doesn't make sense. I do love solo travel and being by myself, but there isn't any, you know, other man or, you know, there's no cheating activity on that. And I think to Kayla's point, unfortunately, if people are going to do that activity, they're going to do it at home. They're going to find time. And I think, yeah, we work hard to communicate and make sure that we're on the same page and that we're getting what we need out of the relationship so that you don't get into a situation where you feel like you need to seek that elsewhere.
Facts. Good stuff.
Okay, Joe.
Well, thanks, Joe.
Okay,
we appreciate you calling in. Yeah.
Thanks for supporting.
Yes. You see, I told you there's people that are not going to get it. So
I love that though. I think it's good to talk through. I feel like, you know, I don't know if 10 years ago I would have been in a relationship where we had this type of trust. So I value differing perspectives, but
yeah,
no cheating here. However, if it did ever happen, I would be telling my fiance about it.
Yeah.
Can't be a cheater and a liar.
Right. Double whammy. So who is this? Hey, cheeky dancer.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm just curious about.
Wait. Hold on. Do you hear something? Is it me?
It sounds like some kind of insects flapping wings. I don't
know. It's some kind.
That's okay, cheeky. What?
It's
person. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll just deal with it.
Y'all hear something? I'm missing it. My fault.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll do that later. But My question is that do you think that your mindset will change as a wife? Because here's the thing. I think that, you know, if you are if you're single or not single, but if you're not married, you don't have any real obligation unless you choose to follow that. So going on a 10-day trip is not a problem because technically, if you want to view it that way, you're single. But if you're married, do you think that your responsibilities as a wife would allow you just to be able to do that? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think that'll change?
That's a great question. I don't think so. I feel like this was a very particular circumstance, and I usually wouldn't necessarily take a trip this long, but again, was like really trying to go to these destinations and like needed the time after just a very difficult and like busy year. My entire life has changed. I've moved, again, grief, loss, just like a lot going on. I think, I don't necessarily feel like as soon as we get married, I'm going to view our relationship any differently. I show up as a partner. I support, my fiance the same way I did before he proposed. I do think as we look at how we build our lives together, as we have kids, that's where things will really, really change. I want to be present for my children. And so I think that's maybe when solo trips might not happen as long, or it might be like a solo day somewhere versus longer than that. But no, I don't really think that part will change. I feel like, I view myself as a partner the same way that, as a fiance as I would a wife. But I think, again, as our lives evolve and as we have different responsibilities that we're thinking through, whether that be, caring for our parents or again, like as we get into having kids together, I think that's where things will change for me. And it's always a conversation, right? It's not like I'm going to do this. I don't care what you think. It's like, hey, I really need this time because I need to think through everything that's gone on. I really need to focus and, we talk through the logistics of it, but I think, it's probably not going to change overnight in that way.
Okay, yeah, I was curious about that. And that wasn't specifically to you. It was more so just I'm curious. Do you guys? I know the panel's technically, single or not married at the time, but I was wondering if you guys' mentality. I wondered if you guys thought it would change. But it sounds to me like you're just saying you're enjoying the relationship while there's not any real heavy duty responsibility as far as children. Um,
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I look at myself as committed the same way that I did when we were just dating as I do now. I definitely think, an engagement is a little bit more intensive, but we were already living together. We were already, really planning out living our lives together. So it was a natural next step. And I think marriage is an extension of that. But I do still feel, just as committed now as I will when we get married. I think the heavy duty lifting of children is the main thing that'll probably really shift everything.
Yeah, I feel the same.
okay, got you. Oh, and yeah, I hope you all the best. With your fiance in marriage. I understand that what you explained today is by no means anything that people in this manosphere or in this sector would approve of. But I'm not going to wish bad on your marriage. I hope you all succeed and you guys do well. I don't want any harm to come to you guys.
I appreciate that, Cheeky. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So you guys be safe. Have a nice night. Be safe out there while you're traveling.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was on a panel earlier today where we were
Yes.
talking about the safety of solo travel. And I definitely do not take that lightly. I think what people do discount is being from, Brooklyn, New York. There are a lot of things that I do, like not walking around outside at night, without paying attention, and the little common sense stuff that I think goes a long way. But I definitely do my research before I go.
And you from
and I make
Brooklyn?
decisions yes, I am.
Where you get that accent from? Where you get that accent from?
I don't know. I guess I don't know what accent I have, but I'm from Brooklyn, and now I live in Chicago. So
I like it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think accents are rooted around the people that teach you how to talk, not necessarily where you're from, in my opinion, because I'm from the South, but my parents aren't from the South. So that's why I don't feel like I have like a Southern accent. You know what I'm saying? Like I just talk normal.
Yeah, no.
So,
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
yeah.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, I mean, great questions, Cheeky. Great question.
You guys have a nice night.
You too.
Thanks,
see
you too.
soon.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Cheeky is, I expected different, but he was okay. I mean,
What did
you
you?
know, he's done quite a bit on prior shows, so I didn't expect. I thought he was gonna like do the most, but he didn't.
I love that. I mean, listen, I
He
know it's
was,
not for everybody, and that's okay.
Exactly. It's okay if
and yeah, I was gonna say, Kay says it all the time.
I say it all the time. It's okay if like we're not doing the same thing, or if you don't like what Kira likes, or if Kira doesn't do what you do. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
As long as my fiance is aligned and we're on the same page, I think we're good. But I feel like, yeah, when you share, people are entitled to their own thoughts. And at least maybe it'll make people think about a different way of doing things. But I really want my marriage to last. So we've been working on how we do that and how we cultivate an environment that we can do that in.
So before we start to wrap it up, I know we didn't talk much about your entrepreneurship. I just want you to kind of give us a synopsis about that, and any advice that you would have for any young entrepreneurs that are just getting started or anything like that.
Absolutely. A great note to start to wrap on. So I am the founder and owner of By K West, which is a wellness community on Instagram and on my blog at By K West, and then bykwest.com. So I talk about travel, wellness. I talk about food, fitness, and all of that good stuff. And I think, the Black woman's perspective is obviously unique, but I also want to be the guinea pig to try new things, to share how it's going, and to just encourage people to figure out what wellness means for them. I guess my perspective is kind of similar across different areas of my life, where I want people to do what works for them and not necessarily what they see works for others if that doesn't align. So that's that. And then I launched Made by K West. I'm actually wearing one of my pieces. You can't really see it because of the camera angle, but a travel-inspired jewelry line. We're launching some really exciting stuff to come, but I wanted to create pieces that made sense, that mattered. And so these are handcrafted. They're made to last, and we also donate a portion of each sale to Girls Going Global, which helps young women have cultural immersion experiences, both domestic and abroad. And they're doing some really, really cool stuff as travel rebounds. So I think trying to kind of pay it forward, I've always really wanted to make an impact, and that's how I define success. So to that end, that's Made by K West. And then I talked a little bit about activism earlier, but that is the anti-racism wellness company that I founded with my co-founder Taylor. And essentially we're fusing anti-racism education and wellness. I mean, we all know here how challenging it can be to kind of handle our lived experience. But I think last year was the first time that some people really started to learn what that's like. And so for us, I mean, experiencing it, finding our voices and how we wanted to talk through it, Taylor and I both leaned into wellness in different ways, but being able to share that has been really impactful, encouraging. And I think, I was frustrated by this whole idea that we're going to give a white woman a book and she's going to read it by herself and discuss it with her white friends and somehow, have an evolved perspective. So we're having the difficult conversations, but in, bite-sized pieces. And yeah, that's a little bit about that. I think, entrepreneurship is challenging. Again, I guess like a relationship, I'm starting to see the parallels between all the things we're talking about. But I would say, just do it, right? Like do your research, definitely know what you're launching, but don't wait for some perfect state of when you think is the exact right time, because it probably won't be there. And know that it's a journey that you're always going to learn on. I'm so grateful to have help. I think, again, we all have our skill sets. And if you're trying to start an entrepreneurial venture while you're still working, or whatever, definitely handle what you can and learn. And Google is a wonderful resource, but if you can hire help, if you can hire an expert, that can go a really long way and it can save you so much time. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And then honestly, you'd be surprised by friends and family and how they show up when you're doing something new. So I would say don't discount the support that you have within your network, and also leverage those people for feedback. I think feedback is incredible, not just on a personal level, but when you're running a business, because it really does help you continue to evolve and be better. And yeah, I would say, continue to kind of do good work, even if it's small scale at first, because I think, having a consistent product, really building bonds with customers is important. yeah, it's exciting, and I'm excited about what we have to come. But yeah, entrepreneurship.
Yeah. No, that's entrepreneurship is hard. So I'm definitely glad that you spoke on that because it is a lot more difficult than people make it appear on Instagram. So
It
yeah,
is.
definitely. Yeah,
Speaking
for
of
sure.
Instagram, make sure you all go check out Kira on Instagram. Tell them you're tell them all your things. I was there. I saw your jewelry. I saw your chain for the mask and the all that. I was like, okay, this is cute. So if they want to check you out, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Everything is really at ByKWest, at BYKWEST. And then the jewelry is made by K West or madebykwest.com. If you had more questions, if you listened, definitely reach out. I always love getting fun DMs. And yeah, I think, being a content creator is also difficult. It's not as easy as it looks, but I'm grateful to have a community to pour into, to get to know, and it's really exciting as well.
Yes, thank you. You know what? This has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming. Make sure y'all go
Yes.
check out all her stuff because I'm not just saying that. It's really pretty.
It's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, thank you for coming.
Gorgeous.
It's been
Love
great.
supporting Black owned businesses. Shout out to all the Black businesses. Like, it's just beautiful. And I want us to support each other and, like keep it in the community as much as we can.
100%.
So I'm
I
all
think.
for that. And for mindfulness. Yeah, also for mindfulness because it is starting to become something in the Black community. It's starting to become more important in mental health. We had a whole show about mental health and just wellness in general. And now you see people out here in their alkaline waters, and people are, taking their turmeric shots, and people are doing everything. I feel like we're all on this. At least we're transitioning to like wellness and everything in our community. So I'm happy to see that, it's a less like taboo, I guess. And it's more like, let's
Yeah,
live long, and I'm happy that we're
that
embracing that in our community for sure.
that's the goal. I'm like, let's live longer. And food
My
doesn't have to
frozen?
be tasteless. Healthy food can be good. And I think that's also what I want to
Yes.
convey.
I totally
Um,
agree. My brother's a tennis player. Yeah. Yes. And my brother's a tennis player. And when he first went professional, he had this nutritionist that like changed everything. Cause like there's a lot of things I just wouldn't eat before. And it's just because I didn't know how to.
yep. It's all how you cook it and how you season it.
Did I cut out?
When in doubt, season it. You did a little bit, but season it.
Uh-oh.
That's what I
Am I
got.
still here?
Kira's like just
Am I still here?
yeah, you're here. Now you are. Now you are. All right. We keep being like, okay, and we're wrapping
Okay.
it. Okay, we're Sabrina.
Yes, so I just had a quick question. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Welcome.
Okay, so I know that you discussed those solo trips, and then some of the guys called in to ask, for you to clarify on it. And I think personally, because I am married, and a lot of times I hear a lot of guys say that it doesn't reflect a submissive woman if they go on the solo trips, of course, with their girlfriends. However, I say that each person, even the husband, each of us should always have an outlet, whereas we don't do everything together, so that you can, reestablish some different things, especially with women. Sometimes we get in line to do so many different tasks and are required to do so many different things that we have to reestablish ourselves and return back to our femininity in regards to, getting this power from your friends and such. And it's important to also surround ourselves around women who have those same goals and morals that we do. And once we do that, I don't see the issue that would be with those solo trips. Now, for the length of time, I may have misheard, but I think you said it was 10 days. Is that true?
Yeah, this one was especially long. I really wanted to stay in a couple destinations, and I was trying to work around their availability. So I would say I probably haven't taken a trip and probably won't take a trip that long. But I think with COVID too, we haven't really been able to travel. And I was working while I was gone, so I wasn't just traveling.
So, in regards to the length of time now, I'm a little unsure about the length of time. However, I know that once you are married, you're going to be really considerate of that, the length of time that you take on a trip, a solo trip, unless it's for like mainly business. But if it's for pleasure, then that may be something that you guys have to discuss. But to each its own, that is correct. I do know that a lot of times they say when you're in a relation, well, a marriage, not it being a partnership, but a marriage, that each of you need to rock a certain way to avoid any, like negative influences on you or any temptations. It's not saying that you will do it, but you want to limit the opportunities or the chances that you may get caught up in a situation that otherwise, if you had not been apart for so long, it wouldn't have occurred, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a valid point, and I'm not married yet, so we'll see how it goes. I think, the more complications you start to have in life, or just the more things to think about, i.e. children or just other factors, I think that kind of changes things. But I think, there's definitely conversation. It's not to say I was like, all right, I'm out, but I think there really is a foundation of trust and just kind of constant communication, and respect. But I appreciate that, and I think it's helpful to have outlets. And I definitely agree with having friends and folks in your circle that have similar morals. And I think too, aligning with your husband, partner, fiance on what your morals are, and what's important to you is really helpful. I think my fiance understood how important this was to me as a part of my grieving process, as a part of my dealing with like trying to work and going back to the office, and really trying to kind of feel that sense of power within myself too. That he didn't necessarily see it as like, oh, she's leaving me for 10 days. It was like she's doing something that she really needs to do for her mental health. And I think that's kind of how I view it too.
I missed that part. That's extremely important because it wasn't just for pleasure. It was in order for you to regain your own self, your own identity, to feel more secure in yourself. So that's totally different. And to piggyback also, I have kids. So of course you wouldn't have the freedom possibly to be gone that long. And with kids, of course, we're obligated to, not be gone for that length of time, maybe to be more considerate of it. But it just, of course, depends on each person's relationship and the understanding that you have with your partner. And I sincerely wish you guys well. I will say also, you said that you're not submissive, but based off your delivery and the way you articulate, I really do think that you're probably more submissive than you think. And I say that because you said that your future husband, he's extremely confident in himself, that his ego and pride doesn't take over the fact that sometimes you may go a little times 10. And he takes the approach of, like being really calm and letting you have your way, because that's, again, part of you and your feminine ways, I would say. Some people may say that's not true, but I think that your demonstration, your display tonight show that you are feminine and that you may have some of those qualities that you may not even identify with, and that just comes naturally to you. That's the difference as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I definitely think that I can appreciate, my femininity. And I think it's something that I'm sure he appreciates as well. But yeah, I think a relationship is definitely give and take. And, there are times where, it's not worth picking every single battle up. And so, yeah, I love that.
Okay. Well, that's all that I had.
Thank you, Sabrina.
It's a pleasure hearing from you. And hello, Kay and Kayla, wherever she went to. Hey, ladies.
Hey, thank you for supporting. Oh, she's back. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sabrina, for calling in.
Oh, you guys are more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for real this time. So, okay, we talked about your socials and all of that. I just want to thank you again for coming on our platform and telling us more about yourself, answering a bunch of questions, giving us that glimpse into your life. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. I love the questions.
Kayla, are you frozen?
I think she is.
Okay, well, on that note, all right, Kira, I think Kayla is, I don't know, she's out of the country, so
We
yeah.
love that for her.
Yes, I know you do, Kira. All
I
right, well,
do.
thank you for, oh, let me get Kayla so she can say bye real quick. Is she in? Is she in?
I love that. I love that our names all begin with K. My sister's name is Kayla.
Okay.
Kayla, I thought
Do
that
you
was an
guys
awesome.
see me?
Yeah, we can see you now.
I'm out of the country, so I'm trying.
Yeah, we're wrapping up. So any last, last thoughts you want to share before we get out of here? Okay,
Okay,
well,
wait. Is it back?
oh, you froze for a
I
second. I don't
did.
know.
I
Now
did. I'm trying to. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me.
yeah, we
It's
can hear you now.
so
I feel like she was saying really good stuff. She's living her best life. She's so thankful everyone came and supported.
Yeah,
She's
right.
glad we had this conversation. When in doubt, add seasoning.
Exactly, Kara. You were just like, just season it. All right, we're gonna get out of here. Kayla's internet, I don't know what's going on. Thank you again, Kara. Everybody go follow Kara on IG. Check out her website. Check out her merchandise. It is beautiful. We will see you all later. See you next Monday.